Hello everybody, today I'll be reading Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets by J.K. Rowling, Chapter 8, The Death Day Party. October arrived, spreading a damp chill over the grounds and into the castle. Madame Pomfrey, the matron, was kept busy by a sudden spate of colds among the staff and students. Her pepper rub pushed blood instantly, though it left the drinker smoking at the ears for several hours afterwards. Ginny Weasley, who had been looking peaky, was bullied into taking some by Percy. The steam pouring from her vivid hair gave the impression that her whole head was on fire. Raindrops, the size of bullets, thundered on the castle windows. For days on end, the lake road, the flower beds turned into muddy streams, and Hagrid swelled to the side of garden sheds. Oliver Wood's enthusiasm for regular training sessions, however, was not dampened, which was why Harry was to be found late one stormy Saturday afternoon, after a few days before Halloween, returning to the Gryffindor Tower, drenched to the skin and splattered in mud. Even aside from the rain, and when it hadn't been a happy practice session, Fred and George, who had been spying on the Slytherin team, had seen for themselves the speed of those new number 2000s. They reported that the Slytherin team were no more than 7 greenish blurs, shooting through the air like jump jets. As Harry squelched along the deserted corridor, he came across somebody who just looked as preoccupied as he was. Nearly headless Nick, the ghost of Gryffindor Tower, was staring morosely out of a window, muttering under himself, "Don't fulfill the requirements, half an inch of that." "Hello, Nick," said Harry. Hello, said nearly headless Nick, starting and looking around. He wore a dashing plumed hat on his long curly hair and a tunic with a ruff, which concealed the fact that his neck was almost completely severed. He was as pale as smoke, and Harry could see right through him to the dark sky and torrential rain outside. "You look troubled, young Potter," said Nick, folding a transparent letter as he spoke and tucking it inside his doublet. "So do you," said Harry. Nearly headless Nick waved an elegant hand. "A matter of no importance. It's not as though I really wanted to join, though I'd apply, but apparently I don't fulfill requirements." In spite of an airy tone, there was a look of great bitterness on his face. "But you wouldn't think," he erupted suddenly, pulling the letter back from out of his pocket, "that getting hit 45 times in the neck with the blunt axe would qualify you to join the headless hunt." "Oh, yes," said Harry, who was obviously supposed to agree. "I mean, nobody wishes more than I do. It had all been quick and clean. My head had come off properly. I mean, it would have saved me a great deal of pain and ridicule. However, nearly Headless Nick shook his letter open and read furiously. We can only accept huntsmen whose heads have parted company with their bodies. You will appreciate that this will be impossible otherwise for members to participate in hunt activities such as horseback head juggling and head polo. It is with the greatest regret, therefore, that I must inform that you do not fulfill our requirements. With very best wishes, Sir Patrick Delaney Podmore. Funny, fuming. Nearly Headless Nick stuffed the letter away. Half an inch of skin and sinew holding a minder on her roof. Most people would think that's good and beheaded. But oh no, it's not enough for Sir properly depicted Podmore. Nearly Headless Nick took several deep breaths and then said in a far calm tone, "So, what's bothering you? Anything I can do?" "No," said Harry, "not unless you know where we can get 7 free Nimbus 2001 for our match against Slin." The rest of Harry's sentence was drowned by a high-pitched mewing from somewhere near his ankles. He looked down and found himself gazing into a pair of lamp-like yellow eyes. It was Mrs. Norris, the skeletal grey cat, who was used by the caretaker, Argus Filch, as a sort of a deputy in his endless battle against students. "You'd better get out of here," Harry said Nick quickly. "Filch isn't in a good mood. He's got flu and some third years accidentally plastered footprints all over the ceiling in Dungeon 5. He's been cleaning all morning, and if he sees you dripping mud all over the place..." "Right," said Harry, backing away from the accusing stare of Mrs. Norris. Not quickly enough. Drawn to the spot by the mysterious power that seemed to be connect him with his foul cat, Argus Filch burst suddenly through a teaspoon to Harry's right, wheezing and looking worriedly about for the rule breaker. There was a thick tartan scarf bound around his head, and his nose was usually purple. "Phil!" he shouted, his jowls a quiver, his eyes popping alarmingly as he pointed at the muddy puddle that had dripped from Harry's Quidditch robes. "Mess and muck everywhere. I've had enough of it, I tell you. Follow me, Potter." So, Harry waved a gloomy goodbye to Nearly Headless Nick and followed Filch back downstairs, doubling the number of muddy footprints on the floor. Harry had never been inside Filch's office before, but it was a place most students avoided. The room was dingy and windowless, lit by a single oil lamp dangling from the low ceiling. A faint smell of fried fish lingered about the place. Wood filling cabinets stood around the walls with their labels. I could see it, but they contained details of every pupil Filch had ever punished. Fred and George had an entire drawer to themselves, a highly polished collection of chains and manicures hung on the wall behind Filch's desk. It was common knowledge that he was always begging Dumbledore to let him suspend students by his ankles from the ceiling. Filch grabbed a quill from a pot on his desk and began shuffling about, looking for parchment. "Dung," he muttered furiously. "Great sizzling dragon bogies." Frog brains rubbed insistence. "I've had enough of it. Make an example as form, yes." He retrieved a large roll of parchment from his desk drawer and stretched it out in front of him, dipping his long black quill into the ink pot. "Name, Harry Potter. Crime, it was only a bit of mud," said Harry. "It only is a bit of mud to you, boy, but to me it's an extra hour scrubbing," shouted Filch, a drip shivering unpleasantly at the end of his bulbous nose. "Crime, befoling the castle," suggested sentence. Dabbing at his streaming nose, Filch squinted unpleasantly at Harry, who waited with bated breath for his sentence to fall. But as Filch lowered his claw, there was a big, great bang on the ceiling of the office, which made an oil lamp rattle. "Peeves!" Filch roared, flinging down his quill in a transport of rage. "I'll have you this time! I'll have you!" And without a backward glance at Harry, Filch ran flat-footed out of the office, Mrs. Norris streaking alongside him. Peeves of the school spotted a grinning airborne menace who leapt to cause havoc and distress. Harry didn't much like Peeves, but couldn't help feeling grateful for his timing. Hopefully, whatever Peeves had done, and it sounded as though he'd wrecked something very big this time, would distract Filch from Harry. Thinking that he should probably wait for Filch to come back, Harry sank into a moth-eaten chair next to the desk. There was only one thing on it apart from his half-completed form: a large glossy purple envelope with silver lettering on the front. With a quick glance at the door to check that Filch wasn't on his way back, Harry picked it up and the envelope and read: "Quick spell, a correspondence course in beginner's magic. Intrigue." Harry flipped the envelope open and pulled out the sheaf of parchment inside. More curly silver writing on the front page said: "Feel out of step in the world of modern magic? Find yourself making excuses not to perform simple spells? Ever have been taunted by a woeful one walk? There's an answer. Quick Spell is an all-new, fail-safe, quick result, easy learn course. Hundreds of witches and wizards have been benefited from the Quick Spell method. Madame Z. Nettles of Topsham writes, I had no memory for incantations, and my potions were a family joke. Now, after Quick Spell course, I am the centre of attention at parties, and friends beg for the recipe of my scintillation solution. Warlock DJ Prod of Didsbury says, my wife used to sneer at my feeble charms, but 1 month into your fabulous quick spell, of course, I succeeded in turning her into a yak. Thank you, quick spell. Fascinated, I thumbed through the rest of envelope's contents. Why on earth did Filch want a quick spell course? Did this mean he wasn't a proper wizard? Harry was just reading. Lesson 1. Hold your wand. Some useful tips. When shuffling foot outside of him, Filch was coming back. Harry threw it back onto the desk just as the door opened. Filch was looking triumphant. That vanishing cabinet was extremely valuable, he was saying gleefully to Miss Norris. We'll have peas out of this time, my sweet. His eyes fell on Harry and then darted to the quick spell envelope, which Harry realised too late was lying 2 feet away from where it had started. Filch's pasty face went brick red. Harry braced himself for a tidal wave of fury. Filch hobbled to the desk, snatched up the envelope and into a drawer. Did you read? He spluttered. No! Harry lied quickly. Filch's knobbly hands were twisted together. If I thought you'd read my private, no, that's not mine. It's for a friend. Be that as it may, however, I was staring at him alarmed. Filch had never looked madder. His eyes were popping. A tick was going in of his pouchy cheeks, and the tartan scarf didn't help. Go. And don't breathe a word. Not that, however, if you didn't read, go now. I have to write Peeves' report. Go. Amazed at his luck, he sped out of the office, up the corridor and back upstairs. To escape from Filch's office without punishment was probably some kind of school record. Harry, did it work? Nearly headless Nick came gliding out of the classroom. Behind him, Harry could see the wreckage of a large black and gold cabinet, which appeared to have been dropped from a great height. I persuaded I persuaded Pete to crush it right over Filch's office, said Nick eagerly. Though it might distract him. Was that you? Harry said gratefully. Yeah, it worked. I didn't even get detention. Thanks, Nick. They set off the corridor together. Nearly headless Nick, Harry noticed, was still holding Sir Patrick's rejection letter. I wish there's something I could do for you about the headless hunt, Harry said. Nearly headless Nick stopped into tracks, and Harry walked right through him. He wished he hadn't. It was like stepping through an icy shower. But there is something you could do for me, said Nick excitedly. Harry, would I be asking too much? But no, you wouldn't want. What is it? Said Harry. Well, this Halloween will be my 500th birthday party, said nearly headless Nick, drawing himself and looking dignified. Oh, not sure whether he should look sorry or happy about this, right? I'm holding a party down in one of the roomier dungeons. Friends will be coming all over the country. It would be such an honour if you would attend. Mr. Weasley and Miss Granger would be most welcome too, of course, but I dare you really go to the school feast, voiced Harry on tenterhooks. No, said Harry quickly. I'll come. My dear boy, Harry Potter at my birthday party. And he hesitated, looking excited. Do you think you'll possibly mention to Sir Patrick how very frightening and impressive you find me? Of course, said Harry. Nearly headless Nick beamed at him. A birthday party, said Harry keenly, when Harry had changed at last and joined her and Ron in the common room. I bet there aren't many living people who can say they've been wanting to one of those. Why would anyone want to celebrate the day they died? Said Ron, who was halfway through his potion work and grumpy. Sounds dead depressing to me. Rain was still latching the windows, which were now inky black, but inside all looked bright and cheerful. The firelight glowed over the countless squashy armchairs where people sat reading, talking, doing homework, or, in the case of Fred and George Weasley, trying to find out what would happen if he fed a filibuster firework to Salamander. Fred had rescued the brilliant orange fire-dwelling lizard from a care of magical creatures class, and now it was smouldering gently on the table, surrounded by a knot of curious people. Harry was the point of telling on Ron and Hermione about Filch and the Quickspell course when the salamander suddenly whizzed into the air, emitting loud sparks and bangs as it whirled wildly around the room. The sight of Percy bellowing himself hoarse at Fred and George, the spectacular display of tangerine stars showering from this salamander's mouth, and its escape into the fire. With accompanying explosions drove both Filch and the Quickspell envelope from Harry's mind. By the time Halloween arrived, Harry was regretting his rash promise to go to the Death Day party. The rest of the school was happily anticipating the Halloween feast. The great hall had been decorated with the usual live bats. Hagrid's vast pumpkins had been carved into lanterns large enough for 3 men to sit in. And there were rumours that Dumbledore had booked a troupe of dancing skeletons for an entertainment. A promise is a promise, said Hermione, reminding Harry bossily. You said you'd go to the death party. So, at 7 o'clock, Harry, Ron and Hermione walked straight past the doorway to the packed great hall, which was glittering invitingly with gold plates and candles, and directed their steps instead towards the dungeons. The passageway leading to Nearly Headless Nick's party had been lined with candles too, though the effect was far from cheerful. These were long, thin, jet-black tapers, all burning bright blue, casting a dim, ghostly light even over their own living faces. The temperature dropped with every step they took. As Harry shivered and his robe and drew his robes tightly around him, he heard what sounded like 1,000 fingernails scraping an enormous board. "Is that supposed to be music?" Ron whispered. They turned a corner and saw Nearly Headless Nick standing at a doorway hung with black velvet drapes. "My dear friends," he said mournfully, welcome, welcome. So pleased you could come." He swept off his plumed hat and bowed them inside. "That's all for today. Bye."